Hey, this is C&D Channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my UFC 182 post-fight analysis. Overall, I thought it was just an okay... The main event was really good. That was really good. The other fights were, in my opinion, except for the ones that went to the finish on the FS1 prelims, a lot of them didn't get out of first gear, in my opinion. Tavares versus Marquardt always seemed like they were always feeling each other out. Horiguchi versus Gotti now, like maybe around the second round it started to get a little past that first gear. Cerrone Jury was actually was kind of getting there by the third round, but like it never, maybe late in the fight, some of these fights it got out of that first gear, but some of them never actually got past that. There's 3 finishes, all by strikes, on the FS1 prelims, and they're all good finishes, too. My picks weren't too bad. 7 out of 11. I missed Jones versus Cormier, Father versus Castillo, Garbrandt versus Brimage, and Marion Renault versus Alexis Dufresne. There's some, as far as what happened in the event, there weren't any, scorecards that were particularly bad. Nothing that the refs did that were particularly bad. The only thing that was kind of noteworthy was the paper running short on time. And they couldn't interview Cormier afterwards and whatnot. But otherwise, I thought it was a good event. I think the main event really saved it. And maybe the end, the third round of Cerrone versus Jury is good. But I can't say I was super maybe they weren't bad performances from Horiguchi, Lombard, Tavares, or anything like that. But like I said, to me sometimes I didn't really get an idea of getting past that first gear where you're pretty much what I mean by that too is I wasn't by the time the second round was rolling around I was yeah, this fight's not going to the finish, not a bad card, but just not great. But that main event was fantastic. So let's get right to it. Jon Jones defeated Daniel Cormier by unanimous decision. I'm going to have to admit a couple things right now. I am going to be eating crow here because I totally underestimated Jon Jones. I was very wrong about my prediction here. I said that Daniel Cormier should be able to take down Jon Jones, and Jon Jones couldn't take down Cormier. Dead wrong there. I totally underestimated Jon Jones in this fight, and yeah, here's the crow that he is making me eat right now. It's gummy. So, excuse me, eating crow, not great. So, what can I say? Great fight, though. I thought that Cormier's best offense was the uppercuts from the inside, especially from the single collar tie. Still got crow in my mouth. And sorry. So what happens when I'm proven wrong? But when Cormier can make it a dirty fight and a dog fight and really get inside and make it ugly, it was really close. Or it made it really competitive. But otherwise, range-wise, I knew that Jon Jones would have the range on Cormier. Jon Jones got 3 takedowns on Cormier. I think 2 of them in the 4th round. They were against the cage, and then 1 of them in the 1st round when he caught the kick. And Cormier got 1 takedown in the 5th round. One thing I didn't like about Cormier here, too, was his performances in the championship rounds left a lot to be desired. He pretty much just got tooled in the 4th round. Is getting taken down, clinched against the cage for the majority of the round and whatnot. And it seemed like in the 5th round, instead of like trying to keep the fight standing and possibly getting the knockout, I get this impression that Cormier kind of wanted a moral victory here by getting that takedown in the 5th round, because he tried so desperately to get this takedown in the 5th. It's like, you're not going to win that way. And so he actually gets a takedown, and Jones just gets back to his feet. Like I said, I liked Cormier's single collar tie, dirty boxing uppercuts. Some of the strikes he's in, he's actually hitting jabs and left hooks when he was getting inside. Jones' range, though, was too much. His balance, too, was too much, too. His length and balance couldn't get taken down. One thing that was interesting about the fight, too, was just that pretty much at the start of the round, and my friend made comments of this. It's like, okay, John Jones is going to start with like a head or body kick. That's what happened. And it's like, Cormier would just like eat it, or just like he'd block it. Wouldn't do anything, but it's like, dude, you know it's coming. I don't know if you should just shoot it, go straight in like that. But Jones is using his trademark elbows, using knees, different types of kicks, punches, and whatnot. The other thing I noticed with Cormier, and I mentioned it in the predictions, but it really showed itself here, is that Cormier is very vulnerable to the body. Kicks to the body. I noticed it in the Frank Mir fight, and it really showed itself here in this fight. He's just very vulnerable there. So there's really not much else to say. I knew that Jones would win the range game. I didn't think he'd win the wrestling game. He even threatened with a couple front chokes a couple times. Definitely underestimated him there. I think it's safe to say that I will not be picking against John Jones here on out in light heavyweight. I mean, the next logical challenger for John Jones would be the winner of Gustafsson versus Anthony Rumble Johnson. The fact of the matter is, I think the winner and the loser of that fight will eventually fight. The loser of that fight will eventually fight John Jones. There aren't many contenders in the division. There aren't a lot of up and comers. Maybe Phil Davis, if he gets by Bader, will get a shot at John Jones. OSP still, he got that win over Shogun, but that guy needs a lot of work. Cormier would probably get the loser of Davis versus Bader. Maybe the loser of Glover Teixeira versus Rashad Evans. The best bet for Cormier would be the loser of Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Gustafsson. But yeah, Jones. I'm picking Jones here on out. Rematch against Gustafsson. I'm picking Jones against Rumble. I mean, Rumble is one of the more interesting, and just because he's one of the fresher challengers out there, he hits really hard. He's pretty tall too. He's like 6'2", whereas Jones is 6'4". So it's like this pronounced reach advantage, like height and reach advantage. And Gustafsson, obviously, his height and length and whatnot are a threat to John Jones as well. But still gonna pick John Jones to win those fights, man. He's just, too much. Even at heavyweight, I mean, there's very few heavyweights that I would favor against John Jones. Like Cain Velasquez is like one of the only ones. Maybe Verdum, because they're the same height and they won't have that enormous reach advantage. Dos Santos, maybe I'd actually pick Jones over Dos Santos at this point. There aren't a lot of guys I wouldn't, even at heavyweight, there aren't a lot of heavyweights I wouldn't pick against Jones. Great performance by Jones, fun fight. He's going to be breaking some records pretty soon, that's for sure. Most title defenses, consecutive win streak. He's probably going to, I would say he's probably going to beat those records. I think Anderson Silva holds a couple of those records right now. I can see John Jones beating. Daniel Cormier's just his biggest challenge to this date. One of the only guys besides maybe Gustafsson that can probably beat him. I know I'm underestimating Anthony Johnson, but like, it just Jones just seems way superior, right? If Cormier couldn't beat him, I don't know who can. Like at light heavyweight, Next we have that Donald Cerrone defeated Miles Jury by unanimous decision. Donald Cerrone, as Vaughn would call him, or Cerrone, as Greg Jackson would call him, pretty much took Jury to school in a sense. Like, honestly, like, the first round's interesting because Jury gets that early takedown, only for Cerrone to get an omoplata, and working this omoplata, and then Jury eventually is in the bottom of side mount. I found this very neat because I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a little over 2 years now, and there's some subtle things that some people may not have recognized. I don't know. Cerrone has him in side mount, and the first thing I'm thinking is you're leaving some space for Jury to get back to his feet, to scramble back to his feet, and that was the first thing I was thinking. I was like, I don't know what he's doing here. He's not in a position to strike with him. He's not in a position to really get a sub. It's just kind of like say he's going to get back to his feet. But what it was is he baited him to give up his back, and then Cerrone takes it back, gets a body triangle, and works from there. And I thought, to me that was really neat. It's subtle though, it's one of those things that's really hard to see if you're not like a practitioner, or if, you don't really like, if you're just like a layman, you're just kind of like, oh hey, cool, got his back, took his back, as he's getting back to his feet, he took his back. It wasn't like so simple, got the first round, and then Cerrone, just pretty much outstruck Jury pretty easily. Jury didn't have much out there. He couldn't take him down. And then I think Cerrone put the exclamation mark in the third round, got the takedown on Jury, went for these really cool winding kicks, while he was on the ground, beat him up on the feet before that. Cerrone's on a roll. What can you say? Beating some top guys. Just top guy over top guy, Up and comers like Jury and Barboza. More established talent like Eddie Alvarez and Jim Miller, What can you say? This guy's just hitting his stride and doing it well. Jury looked good, but not great. That's all. He's just not there yet. I think he'll get there. I just don't think that, at this point, he didn't have anything for Jury. Or, excuse me, Jury didn't have anything for Cerrone. With that said, Cerrone, my guess, because the timing actually works really well. I know how Nurmagomedov is supposed to come back around March or April. I'm going to guess Cerrone is going to fight Nurmagomedov next. Jury, he can fight. There's a lot of guys for Jury to fight. The loser, Benson Henderson versus Eddie Alvarez, Gilbert Melendez, let's see, who else? I know Barboza's fighting someone, like the loser. I forgot who Barboza's fighting. Yeah, I think he's fighting someone. I forgot who he's fighting. There's a good amount of fights for Jury, but it's not that he doesn't have it all together or anything like that. It's just that, like, I think I think what really hurts him, one thing, he's not a specialist anywhere. He's not a guy you can be totally afraid to go to the ground with. He's a good wrestler, but not like this super, like he's not gonna like take you down at will. And he's a good striker, but he's just not a great striker. I think that's gonna hurt him against guys that are just better than him and in certain areas of MMA. And just, like Cerrone could defend his takedowns and beat him up on the feet, It's a great win for Cerrone. I think that, like I said, I think that the next fight he's probably going to get is probably Nurmagomedov, though. Next fight after that, Brad Tavares defeated Nate Marquardt by unanimous decision. Kind of a tentative fight, Marquardt was starting to look old in this fight. I noticed that. The way he reacted to getting hit, he just seemed a bit slower to me. He got hit by a jab and just kind of freeze up, He backed up like every time Tavares stepped forward, Marquardt would step backwards, There's a lot to like out of Tavares' performance here, though. Like I said, it didn't really get out of first gear, though, in my opinion. Tavares, the jab was really good. He had a really stiff jab and some good leg kicks. I liked what I saw in those two areas of his game. And he's actually getting some good uppercuts from the clinch, too. I think Tavares is going to actually have the same problem Jury's going to have, or he's just good everywhere, but he's just not great at any one aspect of MMA. And, guys like Yoel Romero are going to beat him, in certain areas of the game. Nonetheless, he's still a really good fighter. And he's still only 26 or something like that. Still improving. Like I said, some things are tightened up. I liked the leg kicks, and I liked the jab that he was showing. Definitely get more of the top 10 to 15 guys. If you want to give him if Uriah Hall gets past Luis Taylor, then you can give him Uriah Hall or Costas Philippou versus Tavares would be cool. If I can give him some higher up the ladder, maybe you can give him some guys coming off losses like Tim Kennedy or CB Dalloway, because I think he's around, or even win or lose if because he already fought Tim Bosch, but if Chas Ladies win or lose against Tim Bosch fights Brad Tavares, that'd be cool too. It's just I think Tavares is around that level at this point of the game. Marquardt, oh man, he looks old. I don't know if he's. He won his last fight against James Cejudo, so I think he'll get one more fight in the UFC. Some of those guys I mentioned actually wouldn't be too bad. Tim Kennedy, CB Dalloway, Philippou, Talis Laitis, Tim Bosch, anyone, the winner or loser of those fights versus Nate Marquardt would be fine. It's just, Marquardt is, at this point, he's kind of a name at this point. He's well-rounded, but I can just tell there's certain things about him that are just not there anymore. He doesn't pull the trigger like he used to either. He eats leg kicks for breakfast. The guy just eats so many leg kicks at this point. Doesn't really check him. And he really couldn't do much against a jab, Next fight after that, Kyoji Horiguchi defeated Luis Gaudino by unanimous decision. Good win for Horiguchi. Like I said, this fight did kind of get out of the first gear after the third round. Once the third round started, the way he can cover distance is really good. He hits really hard. The first round was a bit tentative, but the next two rounds were all Horiguchi. Gaudino just couldn't reach Horiguchi a lot of times. It wasn't even a reach problem. It just Horiguchi would just get out of the way before Gaudino can land any leather. It's kind of expected for Horiguchi to win too. Gaudino's good. He threatened with a standing arm triangle. Kind of did it wrong. You don't actually pull guard for the arm triangle. It's not gonna. Gravity works against him. Now he's being pulled down, by gravity just because he pulled guard or tried to pull guard, when that's not going to work with the arm triangle because the pressure is going to be relieved because of gravity. From that position, I thought that Gatti should have probably actually went for a takedown from that position, like a trip takedown or something, and maybe worked that arm triangle. It's hard to get that. Even if you get that position, I mean, it's hard to get. But, this fight just kind of shows that Horiguchi's just going to be after bigger and better things. A fight with John Moraga wouldn't be too bad because he's a good gatekeeper type guy for that top 10. Or even Chris Carriasso. They're kind of like those good gatekeeper to top 10 type guys. I think Horiguchi should be fighting those guys. I mean, I don't really want to see him fight like the Dodsons, Benavidez's, or if he fights like Buggy Tunov, wouldn't be too bad, but I'd still want to see him fight one or more of those number 7 to 10 top 10 guys like a Carriasso or John Moraga or something like that. Good win for Horiguchi with Gatti now, man. This guy, I don't think he has a win since 2012. He needs to fight more lower to mid tier guys of the division. If they keep, I think they'll keep him though. Next right after that, Hector Lombard defeated Josh Berkman by unanimous decision. It's kind of weird for me to say about that whole getting out of the first gear thing with this fight because it did. I mean, Hector Lombard was trying to put Josh Berkman away, but didn't. And I do have to agree with Joe Rogan in saying that he showed a more patient game. He didn't gas out, which was really good. The only trouble he had was in the first round with those counter right hands. But otherwise, I mean, Lombard made him back up a lot against the cage, a lot. Hit him hard. Even managed to take him down. So, I mean, that was all Hector Lombard. It was a good performance from him. He kind of shows that, he should be fighting, top 10 guys, Berkman, I mean, valiant effort, great chin, but there wasn't really much else to say here. I think Berkman should just get more, lower to mid, just more mid-tier guys of the division for him. And he's a good, solid fighter. Lombard, I heard that he wants to actually get Matt Brown because Safadine had to pull out his fight against Matt Brown. I think that fight's next month, and I think it's in Australia or something. Is it? I'm not too sure now. But anyways, yeah, Hector Lombard. The deal was that if Hector Lombard beats Josh Berkman, that Lombard versus Brown should be the main event of that one. Is that Fight Pass card? Jeez, I forgot. I just know there's an event next month. That Matt Brown was supposed to main event with Safadine. Safadine pulled out, and I think Lombard's going to fight Brown now. Good fight, very appropriate for those guys too. I think it'll be a lot of fun. There were things that Matt Brown, because Matt Brown's a pressure fighter. He's got a really good chin. He keeps going at you, so he can actually attack that cardio of Lombard. Lombard showed good cardio here with his patience and whatnot. He fought a conservative yet smart fight, so it's a good one for Lombard. Man, he is hard to take down, and he can take his opponent down. And he hits really hard too. So great win for Lombard there. Speaking of great wins, Paul Felder defeated Danny Castillo by knockout. It was a spinning back fist in the third round in the FS1 main event of the FS1 prelims. I don't really think much about Paul Felder. After his fight against Jason Sago, he's undefeated. He didn't have too many fights, and I think he has 10 fights now. I didn't really think of him much of a prospect. He's 30 years old. Definitely a guy that's gonna be, it looks like he's hitting his stride already. Maybe we gotta put him in that lightweight class with Masvidal, Bobby Green, Miles Jury, Edson Barboza. Who else is in that class? There's Tony Ferguson class of like lightweights that are like kind of moving up the ladder. I think Felder's got to be in that class now, man. This guy looked really good. His kicks, his punches, his elbows, his knees. Oh, wait, did he use I don't remember if he used too many elbows, but I remember he used some good knees. Man, Castillo, I thought Castillo was just going to take him down. You know, grind him up against a cage, take him down, just keep top control. Castillo could not take this guy down, man. It's big for the weight class. There's a lot to like about Paul Felder, actually. I'm going to keep a close eye out for him. You know, when he got signed to the UFC to fight like Jason Saga, I didn't really think much of the guy, you know. You know, he stepped in to fight Danny Castillo because it's supposed to be Hobby Love that's supposed to fight Castillo. Didn't think much about Felder here. Now it's like, dang. Gotta watch out for this guy, you know. There's a lot to like with him. You know, the variety of strikes he uses, his takedown defense is solid. The way he uses strikes, especially that step and knee, to avoid to detract his opponent from like taking him down. Really good stuff. Just a lot to like with him. You know, if you want to give him like the winner of like Norman Park versus Gleison Tebow, you can do that. You know, give him Tony Ferguson next, Jorge Masvidal or something like that, or Darren Cruikshank even. You can do that. You know, I really like what I see out of Paul Felder. With Castillo, I mean, when this guy can't get his takedown game going on, and he's up against like a weak striker like Charlie Brenneman or something like that, you know, he's definitely beatable. He's kind of a gatekeeper type of guy. I think it's 2 losses in a row now, right? He lost to Tony Ferguson before this. Now it's to Paul Felder. So he's got to get a win. Just more lower to mid-tier guys in the division for him. Next fight after that, Cody Garbrandt defeated Marcus Brimage by TKO 4 minutes and 50 seconds into the 3rd round. Man, this is one of those picks where I'm like, why did I picked Brimage? Which is funny because if you actually listen to my prediction video, I am like totally high on Cody Garbrandt. I'm saying this guy's a blue chip prospect. You know, I'm like really high on this guy, you know, in the predictions. And then I picked Brimage because he has more experience. And I'm like, dude. After watching the fight, it's like, dude, why didn't I pick Cody Garbrandt? I knew he was really good. You know? Why didn't I pick this guy? You know? One thing I like about Garbrandt, this guy's hand speed, man. This guy punches fast and he punches hard. He uses kicks really well, too. I don't like how he kind of has his chin up a couple times. You know, he actually has a good wrestling background. He didn't really show it here, but, you know, this is a solid win over Brimage. Got some good octagon time, you know. Some, like, good, like, octagon experience here, too, you know. A new guy who's, like, he's, like, what, 5-0, now 6-0. Having that, like, octagon time, really important for him. And to go, like, pretty much 3 rounds with Marcus Brimage, but still knocking him out, that's good for his development. Watch out for this kid. Blue chip prospect. There's a lot to like about him. He's only like 23. Expect him to just rise up the ranks. And bantamweight, you know, they can definitely use more like hot prospects. You know, just more lower to mid-tier guys in the division for him. With Brimage, I mean, he's a good fighter, and he actually didn't do too bad against Garbrandt here. And we got some good shots against him here and there, but you know, Garbrandt, that guy's just blue chip prospect. Brimage at this point, I mean, I don't know if you can still call him a prospect per se. He's still relatively young, but like, yeah, he's still relatively young, so I guess you can call him a prospect, but like, you know, he's just not the most winningest like fighter out there. You know, he can beat the lower tier guys, but some of these like hot prospects, I don't expect him to really beat them too much. There's certain guys that, like, I'm confident that Brimage could beat at bantamweight. There's other guys at bantamweight I wouldn't be so confident with Brimage. Just more lower to mid-2 guys in the division for him. Next fight after that, Sean Jordan defeated Jared Cannonier by knockout in the first round. It's heavyweights, I mean, like, one punch. That's all it took from Sean Jordan, I thought Jordan would actually take the fight to the ground, but he didn't need to either. Managed to catch Cannonier with, like, a right hand. There's not much to say here. I did like certain things about Cannonier, like his movement and whatnot, but, he's a guy that just needs a lot of work, Jordan, he's still improving. But he's got to watch out getting into firefights and whatnot. His chin isn't the great, or his defense in the stand-up just isn't the greatest. For both of them, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Next fight, that Evan Dunham defeated Rodrigo Dam by unanimous decision. Dam just looks like a shot fighter at this point, man. The way he'd get hit, and then like he'd kind of like give up, expose his back every time he got hit. Low output. I mean, he went all Chris Levin in the third round, but man, I mean, it was just too little, too late. Dunham using that like, it's kind of like this long lead arm uppercut. Like Rogan was saying as a jab. I thought it was more of like a lead arm uppercut. And following it up with he's southpaw with the left hand. Good stuff. Would even follow that up with a kick, like to the head or something like that. Good stuff from Dunham. Great, a win he needed because he's on a 3-fight. He was on a 3-fight losing streak and only won 1 of his last 5. But the guys he's lost to are like T.J. Grant, Rafael dos Anjos, and that was a contentious decision. Donald Cerrone and Edson Barboza, and he beat like Tyson Tebow, like. I say that because T-Bow's like that gatekeeper to the top 10, So it's a good win for his confidence here. And he looked pretty solid. I liked his combinations here. Get out of the way, when he needed to and whatnot. So just good stuff from Dunham, Rodrigo Dam's probably going to get cut after this. I think there's 3 losses in a row now. And he just looks old now. I don't know what else to say. Fight past prelims, Omari Akhmadov defeated Mats Nilsson by unanimous decision. I knew Mats Nilsson would be aggressive and he's a pressure fighter, but like he just doesn't have I don't know how to say it, but like he'd pressure, but like even when he struck, he'd get countered a lot of times and whatnot. Akhmadov would take him down almost at will. Except in like the 3rd round. Akhmadov, yeah, definitely has gas tank issues. I liked his offensive takedown ability. His striking wasn't. His striking is what I expect from Combat Sambo guys. They just have that like sloppy, untechnical striking that somehow is still very effective. Like Habib Nurmagomedov's like that too, It's just they don't throw straight punches, throw looping punches, but it's somehow very effective for them. I know it's still really raw though. There's certain things I liked, certain other things I liked about him. I liked his ground and pound. He'd hit the body and the head a lot of times. It actually looked like really strong ground and pound. Didn't really like his gas tank. I don't know. I mean, it's a solid performance. I mean, he's still just really raw. With Nilsson, I mean, 2 losses in a row. He's not really a prospect anymore. I mean, he'll probably get 1 more fight in the UFC. Just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for these 2. And finally, Marion Renaud defeated Alexis DeFries or something like that. I think it's DeFries. By unanimous decision. Scorecards are 230-26 and 130-25. This is a case of like Angela Hill versus Emily Kagan, where the fight should have just been stopped by the corner. I mean, this is like, there's no reason why this fight should have gone to the 3rd round. The point where Joe Rogan was like almost screaming to have this fight stopped. DeFries has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She is not good at taking. She doesn't have good offensive takedowns. She doesn't have good striking at all. She's not, she just can't fight at this level, like Rogan was saying. And then she can't make weight on top of that. And this is 2 losses in a row now. So, I watched video of Man Renault, and I knew that she actually had some pretty good hands. I just thought that DeFries would be able to, take her down. That wasn't the case at all. I like what I see from Marion Renault. She's a bit older though. I think late 30s. She can be something of a fun action fighter at bantamweight and get some wins. Like I said, she's got a good ground game. Athletic. I think she's a PE teacher if I'm not mistaken. And that was kind of funny. And that was actually kind of inappropriate. I was actually doing this, but then it kind of looked, yeah. So, anyways, yeah. But, yeah, I like what I see from Mara now. Like I said, good stand-up. She's actually pretty good on the ground as well. So, it's more lower to mid-tier of the women's bantamweight division for her. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC 182, Jones versus Cormier. If you have any comments, just leave them below. That's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.